Hello, welcome to Global Business. I am Imewere Hiomokai. It's good to be back on your flagship business program on this channel. Today we shall be looking at the Naira and Forex, and one of the first things we will tell you is that a recent correction came from the Central Bank of Nigeria through Director of Corporate Communications Isa Abdul Mumini, where he says that Nigeria is not ready to redenominate its Naira. And when I'm talking about redenomination, it's not redesign. It's a different thing from redesigning. We're talking about redenomination. When you redenominate your Naira, what do? You take off some of the zeros, and for instance, you make 1,000 Naira where you say to the dollar, if it is 1,000 Naira to the dollar, you now take off 2 zeros and now becomes maybe 10 Naira, or you take off 3 zeros and it becomes 1 Naira to the dollar. So it then means that 1 Naira now becomes your new 1,000 Naira. That is redenomination. But Nigeria is not doing that. But is Nigeria going to redesign its Naira just like it started last year? Is it going to continue with the process? Time will tell. And we're following that development on Global Business. Meanwhile, Taiwo Oyedele is the chairman of the Committee for Tax Reforms, and he says that Nigeria is moving towards making the Naira to the dollar having its real value. He believes that speculators have had too much of a field day, and so some reforms are coming up very soon, that by December, the Naira to the dollar will be between 650 Naira to 750 Naira to the dollar. How is that going to happen? We're waiting for December for it to show. But for now, let's take a break. And after the break, we shall have Victor Anigonomsu come up with the business trends.
Two of the leading mobile operators in Nigeria, MTN and Airtel, recorded 403.2 billion naira in data revenue in the third quarter of 2023 as Nigerians increased their data consumption. MTN, the biggest telecom operator in Nigeria by subscriber number, made 279.5 billion naira from data service in the period, a 38.9% increase from the same period last year. Airtel Nigeria, a subsidiary of Airtel Africa, made 123.7 billion naira, rounding up to $157 million from data service, a 29.3% increase from last year. Both MTN and Airtel attributed the growth in data revenue to the rise in data usage by their customers, supported by improved data bundle offerings, higher smartphone penetration, and network investments to expand coverage and capacity. MTN CEO Carl Toriola said that 4G network now covers 80.5% of the population, up from 79.1% in December 2022. He also said that data usage GB per user grew by 29.1% to 8.6 GB, and the number of smartphones on their network increased by 7.6%, bringing smartphone penetration to 53.4%, up 1. The federal government is aiming to have the Naira exchange for 650 Naira to the dollar by next month. Taiwo Oyedele, a tax expert and chairman of the Presidential Committee of Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, predicted that the Naira will reach a fair price of 650 to 750 to the dollar by end of year. He said that the federal government will introduce new foreign exchange rules based on his own committee's recommendations to President Bola Tinubu, including cracking down on illegal currency trading, clearing a backlog of dollar demand, strengthening the Naira forward market, and setting transparent rules for the official market. He also said that the federal government wants to expand the official market to include legitimate transaction while eliminating the illegal black market for foreign currency. Also, the Nigerian Exchange Limited closed the month of October on a positive note as investors' confidence was boosted by favorable policies and earning seasons. The listing of 190 million units of shares of the group at 244.8 naira per share also added 46.527 billion naira to the market capitalization of NGX, enhancing liquidity and wealth creation opportunities in the Nigerian capital market. The NGX All-Share Index rose by 4.3% to close at 69,236.19 index points in October, recording a year-to-date return of 35.09% growth. Despite challenges such as rising inflation, interest rate hikes, high exchange rates, and political uncertainties ahead of the 2023 general elections, investors' confidence remained strong, leading to increased buying activity. The positive opinion amongst investors was driven by several factors, including policy introduced by President Bola Tinubu's new administration, such as the removal of fuel subsidy, streamlining of exchange rates, floating of the naira, and investors taking advantage of the record earning posted by listed companies. South Africa's finance minister will propose tax measures next year to raise additional revenue as the National Treasury projected wider budget deficits and higher debts over the next 3 years. The Treasury said it remained committed to stabilize finances through spending reductions, moderate tax revenue measures, and efficiency measures across the government, including merging or closing some public entities. The Treasury also said that given the extent of fiscal consolidation required, the Minister of Finance will propose tax measures to raise additional revenue of 15 billion rand in 2024/2025 in the 2024 budget. The Treasury did not give details on the specific measures, but the Finance Minister said in his budget speech that their most effective way of funding government through an efficient tax administration and by broadening the tax base. South Africa's 2023 economic growth is forecast at 0.8% from 0.9% seen in February. A consolidated budget deficit of 4.9% of gross domestic product (GDP) is expected in 2023/2024, rather than a 4% deficit seen in February. Now, China Evergrande has offered a new debt restructuring plan for offshore bondholders holding about $19 billion of debt. The plan involves swapping their debts into about 30% equity stake in each of Evergrande's 2 Hong Kong-listed subsidiaries, Evergrande Property Services Group and Evergrande New Energy Vehicle Group. The plan, which needs approval from Chinese regulators, would result in major loss for the bondholders, as the shares of the 2 subsidiaries have fallen by more than 80% this year. The plan was proposed by a work committee under the Guangdong provincial government that has been overseeing Evergrande's restructuring since late 2021 after the developer defaulted on its debt. The plan was raised with some bondholders about 2 weeks ago. Evergrande's original debt restructuring plan was disrupted by the investigation of its founder Hugh Kang-yong for suspected criminal activities and the ban on issuing new dollar bonds. The new plan will be key to Evergrande's survival as the company faces a liquidation hearing on December 4th, 2023, which will decide whether it should round up. And that's it on Business Trends. I am Victor Anego Nomsu. Do stay tuned for more on the program.
You know, the name Professor Ken Ife is not new to this program, and it's never new to the economic cycles in Nigeria. Professor Ken Ife is, of course, an ECOWAS consultant. He's also the Managing Director, CEO of BioResource and Technologies Limited. He's our guest today on Talking Point. He'll be looking at the Naira and Forex, the challenges and the way forward. Let's take a listen to this very insightful interview. I must tell you, I enjoyed it myself. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Prof, let's just go straight to the heart of the matter. Forex, the dollar against the naira, is skyrocketing every second. And the first question one is tempted to ask is there a way out?
There will always be a way out if we address all the issues involved in the supply and demand of dollar. The thing is, Forex is a pricing mechanism. It's price. Just like inflation is price. MPR rate is price. So all these things related to price is price of what? Price tries to find an equilibrium between demand and supply. So you always have to have those two perspectives in considerations of policies and actions and policy actions. And in our own case, not only superficially, you can say, okay, let's look at the supply of dollar vis-a-vis the demand for dollar. And then in that case, you are saying, oh, okay, out of the 100% of normal supply of our dollar, 90% of it is coming from NNPC, 79% from crude sales, and 11% from gas sales. Okay. Then there's another 10%, which will come from diaspora remittance, which is the biggest of the four: foreign direct investment and portfolio investment and some invincibles. And then so that represents your supply side. Of course, you do also have a non-oil export that is very small, but nevertheless has the potential to grow. Then on the demand side, you have the normal requirement from central bank. Central bank will require about $1.8 to $2 billion every month to service our foreign debts denominated in dollar. And that could be anything between $600 and $800 million. It could be more. Then you have the demands for imports from manufacturers. And then, of course, medical, educational, name it. But you also have over $4 billion every month, which is around 4.6 billion, which is importers, what they demand. And if you add the two, you're looking at about $6.6 billion against what receipt. So how much does central bank receive? From 2014, central bank used to receive $3 billion every month from NNPC, but now it's gone down to $300 million, which is really 10% of what they receive. The reason is because they did a direct swap, crude swap with foreign refiners. They push out the crude and then they return their PMS. And on a normal day, you will say somebody who does that as a business should make profit, isn't it? But that's not the case. What we have is when the thing comes back, NNPC turns around and say, oh, you are owing me. That's under recovery. You can borrow 500 billion naira every month to pay for the under recovery. So which means that business is being conducted at a loss. You know, that's what it means.
No, when you say NNPC says you are owing me, who does
Sorry?
NNPC say you are owing me?
Government. Because it's the sole importer and sole exporter. So it sells all the crude, then gets back PMS and says, oh, that business, there's a deficit of 500 billion naira every month. So government pay that to me. You are owing me. It's under recovery. And so government goes chasing to borrow money every month, 500 billion. So that's the thing, that you cannot understand why that business cannot pay itself and give us profits, etc. And there are many things there. There are many, many things in that package. So that's why we say, okay, why don't we activate, support modular refineries so that they can take the crude and then give us PMS and reduce the demand for imported PMS. That's another story. Why don't you encourage Dangote to come on stream very, very rapidly so that there's competition in this market and they provide what we need and reduce the hemorrhage on our foreign receipts? That's another story. And then many other things, because when you look at NNPC, it's carrying dead weights. A serious dead weight. You have 4 refineries that we are still paying salaries for workers, but they're not producing. You have many other dead weights government has promised them in the PIA that will help do, but they're not. So they are carrying heavy weight, and you see this weight loaded on the transaction. So, I mean, these are just, as I said, superficially. This analysis is superficial. The real analysis is the structural dependence of Nigeria economy on imported goods. You see, we inherited, Africa and Nigeria, according to the International Division of Labor, are to produce primary commodities. Primary. We are not designed to produce refined, value-added products. So we produce them and they send them overseas so that the West will refine whatever it is and bring it back for us to consume. That is the International Division of Labor. So what you have all over the time is how to perpetuate that dependence. Political economic factors, the design of international agencies that lend money to you is lend them money on anything other than serious scheme to add value. So that's why when you look at cocoa, Nigeria, Ghana, and Cote d'Ivoire produce 72% of world cocoa, but they only account for 7% of the entire chocolate value chain. The story is the same. We produce 71% of world yam. We don't even export yam. Ghana that produces 3.7% exports 70% of yam abroad. The story goes on and on. You are producing crude, the highest crude supply in the continent, and gas, and you are not even earning money from that. You are instead borrowing money when the prices of crude are so high. So it's a wasted project, and we can do better than that. But the biggest danger is that over 80% of the manufacturing capacity that we actually have in the country are dependent on imported raw materials. Now that is the tragedy, because you already have industries that are consuming your foreign exchange, but they are using them to produce things that are imported. In other words, their raw materials are actually imported. So that's a structural deformity in our industry configuration. So we have to deal with this. Look at pharmaceutical industry. Over 95% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients which they use are imported. So what are you putting? Water, sugar, starch, the compound tablet. What value are you adding? The same goes. So when the last administration said, eat what you produce and produce what you eat or consume, it's a very serious dogma, and that is what it should be. If you focus on what you consume and produce to meet that, you're actually import substituting, at the same time backward integrating. In that way, structurally, you are coming up to build your own economy and rely on your economy. So that's why I called the other issue cosmetic, because it's superficial. This is the real issue about the economy. And the danger is this. If your economy is import dependent, it means effectively that you are on the transmission belt of global supply shocks. It doesn't matter what shock it is. If COVID comes, health pandemic, it will affect you. If you have the Arab-Israeli war, it will affect passage of ships and all that through the peninsula, all that, and they have transportation cost goes up. If the crude is, if there's a problem in Russia and Ukraine, why would it affect Nigeria? Because we have oil, they have oil, we have gas, Russia, but we're affected because we depend on import. So Europe, that depends on 40% of their gas from Russia, are experiencing phenomenal rises in prices, and we are importing stuff from there. We are taking inflation. So do you understand? So basically, even American subprime property crisis affects you. Anything global will affect you because your economy is up there in the transmission belt of anything and everything that goes globally. So you devalue your currency, it means nothing because you are not actually exporting anything where the devaluation would be an advantage to you. Because what you produce is oil and gas, that prices are dependent on what OPEC sets, and production quota is dependent on what happens with militants in the. So you have not actually, so it messes up your monetary policy. And also your fiscal policy is held hostage.
Okay, let us look at the policies. You have looked at the solution, started from the solutions. Now let's look at the policies this government is making. I mean, there are a lot of policies that they have made to try and curtail this situation. There is the issue of the 43 items which were earlier banned from accessing Forex, and now they say you can access Forex. Then there are the refineries. I know they said the Port Harcourt refinery will be coming on stream December 2023, while the Kaduna refinery will be coming on stream December 2024. Then, of course, the managed float of the Naira. I mean, everyone is looking at all these. Do you think this will be able to curtail the situation right now? Even though we have looked at the medium, long-term situation and solutions, what about the policies that are being taken by the government right now?
Well, the policies, we're always good with very good policies. But the thing is that the devil is always in the implementation of the policies. Now, if you look at the 41 items, the reason why... 43, I beg your pardon. Well, 43 to 41. I don't know which one it is right now. Now, we went into these 43 items, 41 before 43, in 2016, when we had that recession. And incidentally, the revenue that comes to central bank dropped from $3.2 billion to less than $1 billion. And central bank tried macro-prudential measures. It couldn't work. They tried capital account control measures. We got hit by JP Morgan and all those delisting our security. All kinds of things. Then we decided, okay, let's go on demand management. And then started managing demand. And then got to the point where we said, what the hell are we using this demand to pay for? Take this out. They didn't ban them. It just says, I haven't got it. If I don't have the Forex, I can't give you. So they have to go to the cold end of the black market to source their dollars. Now, what we now saw was progressive move toward that black market. Because as of 2 years ago, around January, February, we were still doing okay in the official windows. About nearly 90% of the transactions were going on there. And then suddenly, it now started shifting to the black market, to the point that even the diaspora remittance is out there. So, and for monetary policy to be very effective, you need to bring in as many players as possible. In the relation to the 41 items, what has now happened is that we needed to have more action on the supply side of Forex to sustainably arrest the decline in the Forex, the exchange rate. And, when the president announced the merger of the markets, I talked about it then. And then I said, well, it's an excellent idea, but we have to look closely into the demand and supply and ensure that there are schemes to bring in more dollar to the table. Because what will happen is, if we don't pay more attention to the demands, to the supply side, what will happen is that there is an initial euphoria by the capital market. Oh, they like this. This is a good idea, good step. Speculators will take a back seat to see whether Forex are going to come, whether dollars are going to come. So you see a slowdown. But then when they don't see it, and you still have 43 items on the cold end of BDC, still looking for dollars and just the mere fact that speculators sit between them is no longer about the real demand for dollar by central bank, which is struggling to meet, and you have dead a lot of people areas waiting. It's not just the demand for importers. There are people that sit in the middle that are speculators who think, oh, this money is going to go down more, so buy dollar now and trade and make a premium. Simple. Even the banks too, that are using willing buyer and willing seller, that do a deal, if you know you have an incoming and a receivable, a dollar receivable, they can do a deal, they'll buy it off you, but then at a much higher rate, which they will not disclose, but they'll still take that transaction to the official window to consummate and fulfill all righteousness and tick the right boxes. But they go away with their premium. So the incentive is still there for the trade to go on. So that trade goes on. But when you begin to see the likes of the diaspora remittance moving away, going into the black market area more, it means that as a central bank, we're losing control. So you need to bring them back so that you can exercise more control. Do you understand? You can't be controlling only 40% of potential market and the other one is running away. So that's one of the reasons. But you can do that, but you still have to address supply of Forex. If you don't address that, what will happen is that what started as a convergence before will still be going down and then widening as they go down because they're still not having enough Forex. And that's exactly what has happened. Now, part of the solutions are beginning to come, which is unlocking liquidity. And the two presidential executive orders are actually at the heart of the challenge now, at the heart of the solution. Immediately, temporarily, we've got this temporary respite that $10 billion is coming. $7 billion from the what do you call it again? It's like a forward sales. And then you have 3 billion from forward sales again of crude by Afrexim Bank. But the securitization, 7 billion securitization, is to say, oh, we have a reliable supply of revenue, forest revenue, which is gas. Gas is much more reliable, even though it's smaller than crude, because the price of gas keeps going up. And then we have rigorous management, corporate governance in the gas sector, and we know what we are doing there. So it's easier to securitize that revenue flow from gas. So we'll have a 7 billion deal there. You know what that means? Just the way you securitize your debt. You know, we have 24 trillion ways and means, and we're securitizing it by doing a 9% instrument, and then over a few years, 30 years or something like that. So the way you securitize your debt by collecting all your debts and then saying, well, is the way you do revenue as well. It's the same thing. Oh, I have an expected inflow over time, and then I want to securitize that and get the money in advance. And then you see what happens afterwards. Obviously, we are going to be building more train anyway, so there will be more money coming in from gas when we build more trains. So it's not going to be as bad as people will think. So that gives you the liquidity. And you need that instant liquidity into the system so that you can do away with the hanging on that debt. So now, when you come to the executive orders, the question is this. NNPC in its revenue, all total, if all their revenue come, is enough to solve Nigeria's forest problem. If we get all that money, keep it aside. Number two, if we get all the monies Nigerians own in dollar, in the banks, or wherever they put them, including diaspora remittance, after diaspora remittance, about $26 billion.
Thank you very much, Professor Ken Ife, for joining us on the program Talking Point. And we hope to have you very soon to talk more about other issues concerning the economy.
My pleasure.
And that's Talking Point on Global Business. The program continues. When you listen to Professor Ken Ife, he engages you and it captivates you that you almost don't want to end that discussion. And that is what happened to me here. I almost couldn't end the discussion with him. But we had to come to an end for the program. And of course, I'm sure you learned a lot. We need to produce more and export more to get more dollars. But more importantly, it is hoped that the recent measures by the federal government will help to cushion the effects of the rising dollar against the naira. Or is it the rising naira against the dollar? I am Imewere Uhiamokai. This is where we come to an end for today's program on Global Business. Remember, it's always nice doing business with you, but it's more important when I do the business with you on this program. Have a great week.